Welcome, EP Psychology students. Today we're going to talk to you about Lesson 6.5, which is Module 78 in your textbook. It's all about aggression. So we're going to talk about what aggression is and what are some of the things that cause aggression according to some of the psychological research. So let's get down to it. First, getting into how we define it. If we have some time in class, we'll have a kind of an interesting discussion about what is and what is not aggression. But for now, I'll show you some, kind of some interesting definitions, and let me know what you think of these. Just you can kind of pause and read them for a second. Some of these are interesting. The one that jumps out to me as I'm not sure how I feel about it. This last one here, a response that delivers anxious stimuli to another organism. And the reason that one really kind of sticks with me, and I'm not sure if I like it or not, is it doesn't contain intent. To me, intent seems to be really important. If I am just kind of socially awkward and I stand too close to you and that makes you anxious, is that really aggression? So we can kind of talk in circles about it, and we'll spend some time on it in class, but it just makes you think, what truly is aggression? We're going to give you some scenarios, and they're going to kind of be some gray area, and you'll get a chance to sit, kind of think about whether they are or not aggression. But it's kind of an interesting social construct at what point does something cross the line and become aggression. You also want to know the difference between hostile and instrumental aggression. So hostile aggression is something that's like impulsive. Somebody says something or does something and you just kind of snap, and you act immediately, or you have a desire, you want to hurt them. Whether it, and think about it, aggression doesn't have to just be physical too. It can be verbal, it can be emotional. And so you act in a way where you want to hurt that person. And then instrumental, more premeditated, and then also when it has a means to an end. So you think about a predator killing its prey. Yes, aggression, but it's different. It's like the goal was not to hurt the prey. The goal was, I need to eat. So I'm going to kill the prey so I have dinner. So there is a difference between those two. So you want to know the difference between hostile and instrumental aggression. Going through these again, and then kind of getting into the causes. A lot of this relates back to things we've already talked about. So one, we're not going to get into any specific genetics, but just understand that researchers think that genetics do play a role in aggression, which kind of makes sense. I mean, animals can be bred for aggression, like dogs and, for example, and it would only make sense that for humans that genetics could play a role as well. So they do believe that genetics matters for humans when it comes to aggression. And they've done twin studies where they've rated the aggression levels of one twin and then compared it to the other one, and there's a high correlation there. When it comes to the brain, we've talked about the amygdala before. People that have higher levels of aggression tend to have more activity in their amygdala, that fear, aggression, stress center. And then they also have less frontal lobe activity. Remember, the frontal lobe deals with things like planning, decision making, impulse control. So again, like not snapping on somebody, or kind of, being able to filter your thoughts and kind of think through things before you act. So people with more aggression have less activity there. We know about testosterone, the hormone, and that higher levels of testosterone are linked to aggression and probably cause aggression as well. And you put all these things together, we look at, not to pick on one group of people, but young men from the age of 12 to 28 overwhelmingly have the highest rates of violent crime. I don't have the exact number, but it's an astoundingly high rate of violent crime. We're talking like high 80s%, if not 90%. And so what are all the things that, go into that? And one big thing is testosterone levels. Testosterone levels are way higher during this time, and they start to drop pretty noticeably around the age of 30. This is also around the time when your frontal lobe is fully cooked, late 20s as well. So again, biology does matter. And then environmental factors. There's a lot of environmental factors. We're more likely to be aggressive when we are both physiologically aroused and experiencing a strong emotion, kind of that two-factor theory. Frustration aggression hypothesis. So it used to be thought that frustration always led to aggression. That's no longer thought to be true because frustration can lead to things like depression and other negative emotions, but it can produce a readiness to aggression. Stress can. Depression can lead to aggression as well. You might not think that. You might think of depression as like, I'm just going to lay around and be mopey. But a lot of times people with depression, it can manifest as, they're snapping at people, and it's not kind of the prototypical way that you might look at depression. But if you have someone, someone who kind of just barks at other people a lot, that can be a pretty clear symptom of depression as well. So stress, frustration, those can be factors, if the environment is causing those things, and then that in turn is creating the aggression. But with this idea of frustration, you have a goal, your goal is being blocked, creates frustration, that in turn creates stress, and then potentially aggression. And then other environmental factors, these are all things on this slide that in a laboratory setting have been shown to cause, so this experimental data, cause higher levels of aggression. And then they've also done other studies where they've found correlations as well, but also causational. So it's experimental and correlational. So hot weather causes aggression. Increasing the temperature in a room increases aggressive behavior. Air pollution, noise, crowding. What does all this look like, sound like? Big cities, so all those can lead to increased aggression. We talked about the spillover effect. If your arousal is already, and we talked about that earlier this year, if your arousal is already up, you're doing something else, and then somebody says something to you or does something to you, you can kind of change from one emotion to another super fast. And you can go from, working out to someone makes you mad, and then you snap on them. So people that were exercising were more likely to act aggressively towards someone who said something rude to them than if people were just sitting on the couch. And then, lots of connections to topic 4, unit 6, the learning unit from last semester as well. Think operant conditioning. In the past, have you been reinforced for aggression? Think about, like football players or wrestlers or other people who play violent sports. If they've been reinforced for acting aggressively, might they generalize that behavior to off, the field or out of the arena? Cultural standards. There are some cultures, we don't need to create a bunch of stereotypes here, but there are some cultural norms where, men are supposed to be more macho, and they're supposed to be aggressive, and those things get reinforced. Observational learning. If you watch other people act aggressively and they get rewarded, whether this is in day-to-day life or if you're watching a movie, that increases the likelihood that, not everybody, but for some people that you would be aggressive as well. And then gender stereotypes, the whole act like a man versus be a lady kind of thing as well, which we'll get into a little bit more in the next unit. And then I'll kind of leave you with this, just kind of a practice FRQ, kind of look at this and see if you can apply what you've learned to the scenario. And we'll talk about this in class in the next few days. All right, thanks guys.